gathering. I welcome Rajeev and Toolika ma'am. And so Rajeev is an architect, and I think everybody knows Toolika ma'am. She's the director of IICD. So I will just speak a little bit about the event, which is Future of Tradition. This is an initiative by DirectCreate. Sheila and Rajeev have been very passionate about crafts and, of course, whatever Rajeev has spoken about. And this is something which has been mulling not for a few years, but a lot of years, and over the years, whatever work they've done. And this is mostly going to be like an experience that we are putting up, and it's knowledge sharing. We're not pushing anything, we're not giving anything, we're not selling anything. This is pure knowledge that we have gathered over the years, and as being in the design field and also in the commercial design format, we have faced challenges, and all of us have been very passionate about crafts and what we can do to sustain the crafts in very plain and simple language, but as Rajeev said, opening the doors really, really wide. Okay, so let's begin.
Thank you. Thank you,
You're most
Sona.
welcome.
Wow, Rajeev, that was very intriguing. There were so many things to it. I beg to differ on a few. And some of them I feel, yes, very positive about. In fact, on the first slide, where you mentioned Paisley, I think it was a mix of things, maybe not really Paisleys, but it gave a message. Yes? And when you talk about craft, and you spoke about the language of craft, I think there's a lot to craft. So we can separate it out, as you said, because here we are talking about surfaces, right? Craft encompasses a lot more than surfaces, because craft, it could be textile, it could be wood, it could be metal, it could be made in stone or paper or leather or whatever. So what I look at craft, I'll just share, and then I'll come to this language part. I look at craft as a product which, of course, has a language. I mean, how it looks. So there are three things: art, craft, design. If you look at it, it has been designed for a particular purpose. So if we have, say, a glass of water to drink, whatever be the surface, the design of the glass will have to be such that it holds water and we are able to drink it. So that is one part of craft. Here what we are talking about, the culture code and the craft, is largely at the surface level, the examples that we saw and the language that we are talking about. And I think it's a brilliant idea if we look at a variety of surface designs or narrative crafts, and we take elements from there. Now this is something what designers have been doing, you know, with their intelligence. Now artificial intelligence will get into it. So for example, when the designer learns about Bagru, or the designer learns about, you know, different crafts, they look at it, they create their mood boards, and then they look at the language of what the craft can do and come back to it. Let us say 200 years ago, when Indian block prints known as shints, or cheat as the better word in India, called shints because the British cannot say cheat. So when we look at that time, if you look at a lot of lotuses, you see them being replaced by tulips, because that is what the British liked. And that is how it changed. Now what I look at here is something similar, what you have done, or what designers do, you know, usually. They look, but they use their own intellect, they use their own experience. Here what you're trying to do is put all of that in the machine, so that the machine can create with, let's say, what is dadar. So you're giving a brief about dadar. You're talking about the craft, that okay, we want it to be done in the Kutch style, and this is how it will be done. And of course, for the artisan, because in any craft, there is a consumer ultimately, and then there is a maker, and there's a designer. Here, the work of designer is largely being taken over by technology because it's putting in all that language together. And when I was going through, the slides that you were presenting, long back in 1996, when I did my master's, my topic was lotus on textiles. So how the lotus flower has been depicted on multiple textiles, and exactly as you said, the idea was to see that whether it's in abstract form, geometric form, natural form. In those days, there were floppies, 3.5-inch floppies. I still have, I don't even know whether I can run them, but there are 7 of them, where it has been dissected like this is geometric, this is natural, stylized, and this is abstract. Whether it's a border or, it's in the main body. So I think it is very nice that we separate it out, we put it there, and then it is there for the designer to see how to take it forward. That was done in Corel 4 and, long, long ago. But then now what I see happening is that people just pick up designs, create their own designs, and then give it to the designer, give it to the artisan. That is happening. Here what I see positive is that, as you said, currency will be with the artisan, because it is his block or his work. He can put it together. You can create a GPT for that person. And what I also see is a huge role of educational institutes, because if you say 20 colors, 200 motifs, so who's going to do that scanning? Who's going to bring it to the fore? But yes, it should be used very selectively. You gave an example of H&M. It has been going on for centuries. You can't stop that. All Indian hand block printing was ultimately, in Paris, machines were made, people started printing over there. So this is going to happen. But how do we take our craftsmen along with it? How do we educate them? I think that is the challenge, that they become a part of it themselves. And so what do you think? Do you think if it's giving me multiple ideas, and I feel that if this kind of training can be given to artisans across the country to create their own GPTs with the material that they have, and then to integrate it and allow designers and makers to come and see what they have and take it forward. But I think it's a huge responsibility. It has to be done responsibly, of course. Of course.
Yes.
So
I think in that front, actually, the responsibility part is central.
Yeah.
That's where we have missed the goalpost so many times in the past, that one needs to be very careful you don't do it again. But at the same time, it's become so much simpler than it was ever before.
Of course.
So that, that apprehension that a lot of community has against, say, for example, photography. It's a typical thing with fashion designers and, artisans. Don't photograph here, because they have been cheated before.
Yes, of course.
Multiple times.
Yes.
Where photographs have been taken and things have been replicated. And because of that, and that was basically a call against photography, which is taking an image.
Even against websites to begin with, that people will look at my designs and create it.
Yeah.
So it's taken a long time for designers to actually,
image. It's an image-based conversation.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, if we apply the yardstick of images limitation and technology limitations to a digital world, they're two different worlds altogether. Yeah. Now it's no longer an image that exists in a frozen form. It's a dynamic image which gets created every second.
Yeah.
And we need to deal with this in a very different way, which is a massive change. It normally should have, like photography took 50 years to settle in, even longer than that. This is not going to give us 5 years even.
Yeah.
So
things are moving very fast.
It's a pace, and that's the urgency to have these conversations, wherein instead of closing our doors, we need to embrace it. And doing this is not expensive, like I said. I mean, it's the beautiful part of it. It's very cheap at this point. At least somebody else is footing the bill. But I think that's how it's going to stay. Only people who are able to align their knowledge systems to the digital world from the print and 2D world are the ones who are going to take the lead in it. And I think it offers Indians and all of us a brilliant opportunity to rewrite this, whatever has happened before, and now take a lead in owning our cultural space with our own data.
And I think, as you had mentioned in one of the, I think the penultimate slide or somewhere, that if we look at it, standardized digital cataloging, a lot of the times I think this is also an issue. Craft specific AI models we don't have. I think we need to work on them. So at IICD, I'm happy to say 4 years ago we started a course called Craft Communication, where the idea was that they use our narrative styles, like you showed the FUD just now, and are able to create stories. And I think the opportunities are limitless. They can create characters out of them to make a video game, for example. Everybody knows about manga, everybody knows about other characters, but nobody talks about Indian characters from, say, Mahabharata or Ramayana playing a game together, or you being Ravan today or Ram today or whatever, and playing on. So I think these kind of things will give a boost to that. And what I really see will be museums. If we have a good collection, we can have virtual museums for our students to experience different kinds of surfaces, textures, textiles, even mud, multiple colors of terracotta. So I think that I look at as very positive. Then, of course, collaborative creation. So as of now, we work on collaborative Word documents, Excel sheets. Tomorrow we'll be able to, even Adobe has that facility, so we could do that.
For collaborative, the example I have put here is GitHub. I don't know how many people are familiar. So this is literally one of the backbones of the tech revolution. It allows you, as a creator of code software, load your code up in the GitHub with your ownership mentioned clearly. You want it to be an open source freeware, or you want it to be a paid thing. Right. And then anybody in the world can use it to create solid, reliable products on top of it. And people make software sourcing hundreds of codes from different creators and build a platform on it. And this is building at a scale that we can't even dream of. People are building at that scale using an open source sharing tool. Now that level of collaboration already exists. We know what it has done to the world. It's brought the cost down, made so many people wealthy, and created a reliable framework. Most important, a reliable framework that does not flip-flop every day. Right. Now, if that could be done from the craft communities, a reliable platform where open source of knowledge is possible, product is paid for, but knowledge is not required to be paid for. But if I get the knowledge, I can do 200 things with it. If I don't have the knowledge, I cannot do anything with it. Right. So this GitHub example is, I think, for me, one of the best example for the craft communities.
Giving me ideas that we've been collaborating with design schools. We should collaborate with IIIT Delhi and people like that to do something, of this level. And blockchain, of course. Recently, I've met people who are working with blockchain for provenance. And I really like that little IoT device that they put into the loom, and one little thing on the yarn, so that when the loom is moving, it records that this is handloom, and when you buy it, you can scan and you can check the provenance from where this, fabric has come, and that it's been woven by handloom. But interestingly, when I told him, can you do that for embroidery? He said that's difficult, because even if you cut sabzi, it will take as embroidery, so the training of the hand, I think there is immense opportunity here of collaboration between IT and craft sector. The strong point about students that are from design schools and study craft is that their knowledge about craft is there, and that can be tapped to create, along with the IT people. In fact, the other day I was wondering that, people talk about that this is green or not green. So do you think technology can help us to also say, give it a label that it is 60% green, 70% green? मतलब यान ऐसा है पर वीव ऐसा किया, तो खरीदने वाला को पता हो कि मैं 50% green खरीद रहा हूँ या 100% green है.
That's your standardized cataloging.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so standard. See, the one of the biggest sufferings for the handcraft sector is lack of standardization. We pride in it.
Huge.
We pride in it, but I think there is also a problem with it.
There's a flip side to it also. Yeah.
So, and which is the need of the industrial world that we live in. Everything is standardized. You can't just have one thing which is not standardized and everything else is standardized.
Well, I mean, yeah, maybe standardization to not an extent.
Yeah, it means different things to different
people.
Yeah.
For example, clothes sizes standardization is not an easy thing in India because not everybody is similar sizes. People,
We have sari.
yeah, sari is very convenient, yes. So, but yes, so NIFT has been trying to do the standardization of sizes, I think, for the last many years, and so is IIT Delhi working on it. And they have these scans which scan the human body and pear shape and apple shape and God knows what not. But they have not been able to really come up with standardization of, sizes in India. Neither shoe sizes nor garment sizes are standardized here. Every brand has their own sizing. So
But
in such a country, I think, so maybe clothing ka alag hai, but for other craft items.
So, the byline says capturing cultural nuances.
Yeah.
So the thing is,
Yeah.
the Western, if you apply industrial yardstick to standardize handcrafted products, it's going to fail.
It's going to fail, yeah.
But who's going to develop the
We have to.
standard? Exactly.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's the actual.
You're
the
giving us a
challenge.
lot of work, yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the challenge and the need, because without standardization of capturing the information, this is the pure nature of how machine works. You will not be able to do anything else. Now, machines
right.
are practically responsible for, at one level, the machines of 100 years back are responsible for taking work away from us. But these machines of today can actually give work back to us. Give the control in our hands because we are changing the methods of doing it. You actually do not even need any tech anymore. That rapidly changing. In the last 2 years, this equation is changing literally by the day. Almost everything can be self-done at a very, very low level of tech. What you need to know though is the logic. Why you want it, which you know better than the tech person knows. You are going to be telling that person the logic. Now you have to apply the logic yourself and do what you need to do. The tools that we have today speak English. Speak your language, any language, not only English, it can speak Hindi also. As long as you are logically speaking, it can logically understand. So it's actually simplified the process to a point where mass scale change can be initiated at a very short, like what we have done with the scanner. We were thinking so much, but it took literally 20 minutes of working, and I think every child could be working on it. That's a level of digitization at a technology level would be enormously large project, but it's 20 minutes.
That is also because the generation that is coming up now
Yeah.
is very tech friendly. Everything, they're very comfortable with technology. They are not really afraid to use it. So I think, of course, but yeah, some trainings would be required, of course. But no, I see tremendous opportunity. Of course, when we talk about threat will always be there.
Yeah.
Certain things may also move out. For example, today, there was a time when people used to use, things like, kya bolte hain usko, wo silbatta to do, chutney and everything. Slowly, mixies came in. Silbatta went out. People who made the silbatta went out. So things that will, certain changes will happen. Today, if you tell all the housewives, no, go back to silbatta, it'll be very difficult. So, yeah, thank you. Instead of going to the gym, they can go back to silbatta, but most people will not prefer to do that. Because again, it's about fast and slow, and life is moving at a fast pace. So when I was talking about craft, I meant to say that there is a lot, but when we talk about this language, we can look at the surface language of craft.
Actually, you carried forward the surface aspect only for this dialogue because I'm in Jaipur, so I thought there's more conversation around surfaces than there is about 3D, but this language exists across, like the examples of architecture that I shared. I know that is a domain more closer to me. I know there's a language in every temple, and I know the fact that we have forgotten what it means. Yeah, I just see every temple has got 5 layers of carving at the base. What is that? Why is this below and that above, and why is elephant in the middle? and a line on top, or what is the border used, which flower is used for which occasion, how the color builds up, what are the layers of, so there is a language, and the creators of those in those structures were talking and telling a full descriptive narrative story through that building, and they had a language which they were using to create those artworks. So language to me is everywhere. Utility, actually, the example of glass or any of the, there are also utilities. So utility is another layer
of craft.
It's another layer of application, where if something is going to be of purpose, you have to first create the purposeful form. But on top of that purposeful form, if I was to give identity to it, which is my identity, then I have to imprint it with, or build it with something which is mine.
Totally,
so
I
these
agree.
are two separate layers. They work very closely with each other. But
no, I totally agree. But I feel craft has a more holistic kind of a definition, where I mean, it has to be handmade for a particular use also that comes into it. And if we talk about the surface, I think we are bang on. It is amazing. It needs to be done. This thing needs to be taken forward. And looking at the examples that you showed us, I mean, I totally feel that for education also we need to, put these things together for future.
Like the poster.
Yes.
That's also mid-journey.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Now,
I guess so.
I mean, it's possible to do that because it's probably got millions of photographs of Jaipur. It understands Jaipur very well. It understands the color of Jaipur. It understands the architectural nuances, which is different. If I do Agra here, it will show me something very different. So where data is there, training happens, and it's able to give the right kind of output. Where data is not there, which is literally...
We have to create.
Yeah. I think that's really the sole purpose. And if we do it on a... Yes.
Yes.
I mean, there is a mic there. Yeah, you can move it
So
around.
we are open for questions. Anybody, not specifically questions, but any dialogue that anybody wants to initiate. Vikram?
Hi, I'm Vikram. I wasn't prepared to even ask a question.
You are ambushed.
But if I recall, I think it was way back in 93 or 94, I was doing a project with Brighton School of Arts. And the project was how a digital information from one computer to the other computer can help the artisan, and they sent me a files. Now, if I talk to about this today, they said, how else would you, like this is how it has been done, like, and the design students today would say, like, I mean, we have only learned this. For me, the technology from where we we've seen the floppies, and we have seen those. The whole technology is moving so fast, and it's very difficult for us to kind of cope up, with the speed. So, somebody like me will take a while to, really understand what you're saying, but it certainly looks very promising and very, very, this is I guess, the future. So, thank you so much.
So a little anecdote based on what you said just now, that how else will you do it. So recently, I used to be in Delhi. I was at NIFT in Delhi, and my house is about an hour away. So I was telling somebody, a younger generation person, that it took me about 3 weeks to figure out the shortest route from my house to NIFT. And they said, 3 weeks? You can do it on Google. I'm like, yes. They said, and they thought Google, I took 3 weeks to understand on Google how to reach NIFT. And then I told them, no, I drove all the way this route and that route. So the younger generation, they don't know any other way. It'll be like, this is the way. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really the exciting part, is that we have a lot of younger generation in the country, and this space, only thing is that younger generation, the challenge that we have seen is fed on alien information, And that's the real challenge. You have younger generation which is continuously consuming information that is not of our creation or our sourcing. So their bias and interests are entirely in a different direction, and no fault of theirs. They are consuming the information that's coming to them. It's the creators who are not creating enough information, because we have kind of wound ourselves down on information side, of sharing information, of doing research, publishing research. Doing research, a lot of people do. Publishing, very few people do. And sharing it with more and more number of people so that the knowledge spreads. That's like number one challenge actually. If we were to have the newer generation care about our traditional crafts, they need to know about it first. And if Google, like for me, the challenge is if Google doesn't know about it, they are never going to know about it. And how will, so do you go, this is how we've been deducting backwards. How would Google know about it? Google will know only about it when there are millions of people talking about it. So when will millions of people talk about it? Then you have to go and talk to the millions of people to talk about it so that Google knows about it. And then billions of others are going to know about it. So this cycle has to be churned. Otherwise the digital landscape, like you said, it's changing so fast. We would lose the whole plot, and then it'll look like such a Herculean task to take up, because we are so late in the day. And culturally we will clean up the slate. Like I've been repeating, our children do not know the difference between a laminate and a wood if you put a good laminate in front, right? Natural wood, touching and feeling natural wood, something as fundamental, is become so rare. You just can't tell.
So this takes me to another question. Touch and feel. Haptics it's called, right? Do you think we can, like you have this mouse here, so do you think, I don't know if technology can go so far that if we touch this mouse and there is velvet, we can feel what velvet looks like?
So that's the area Joy has been working on, trying to see. I mean, her challenge is brilliant. She's going to share this
Tomorrow in a presentation.
Oh, nice.
I have a question, Rajeev. I wanted to go back to the Kharad weaving project and understand when the chat GPT and everything was building that imagery, what is the role of a designer, and is the role changing? And I'm intrigued to understand how is the role of designers changing. And coming back to what you were talking now is, are we okay that students in RISD can indulge in craft design?
I think information would be incomplete without touch and feel. But that is what I feel very strongly. Yeah. That is why I was talking about haptics, if you can do that.
Touch and feel is a we'll see the challenges tomorrow, but it's a very challenging space. So we still do not have all the appropriate tech. But again, the landscape is changing very fast. But to the earlier question, which is more real, it's right now, and it's built with everything technologically available to us right now. The role of a designer in that exercise is actually very simple at one level. I need to be a linguist, and I need to know what I want. Yeah. Or I still should be able to see what I want when I see 4 options in front of me. Yeah. So from the 4 options, I should be able to choose one option. Then iterate further on it. I mean, something that our professors told us all the time, iterate. But if you're drawing by hand, how difficult it is to iterate 10 times. You have to do it manually 10 times, over and over. After a while, you get tired and you stop iteration because human limits have been reached. But with a mid-journey, you could iterate 100 times, 500 times, and keep iterating in all kinds of different directions. But at any given point, you have options and you choose from that option where you want to go. So that is your internal skill. I could have gone in another different direction altogether. The first 4 options, that if you see where I started from, would be something completely unlike the last one.
So we are making it easier for designers, and we are making space for them to probably leap forward, and there is a space created to think in a different direction. So probably the design education is also changing, and there are parts which we are skipping. Am I correct?
It will have to change. And it is changing accordingly. I mean, I believe, at least what I'm looking at around me, I think the role of designer is not going to be easy. But it's going to be facilitated by these tools. You know, it was like, for example, again, going back 30 years, if earlier you had to make a brick pattern for textile by hand, you know, you made something, you traced it, you repeated it. But then once you knew how to scan and use Corel or Adobe, it became very, you know, so tools. So I think it's another tool which is taking you to another level. But, and in all of this, the person who can think well and can create with their hands, I think they will never go out of job. How much ever AI comes into, only the mundane things like Mixie, like I said, you know, the mundane things will be done, but we will always have space for the creators.
Yeah, so I do not doubt that there is not going to be space for creators or designers, but I would love to ask the students, or Gagan, you want to say something?
My question is, no, that's fine.
Okay.
I think I want to. My question is that with Journey, we are essentially removing the creative thinking part. So it is about conversation and how are we able to communicate with the tool to create something versus how much are we also having a fertile mind to think and so because a lot of what was happening earlier, craft is sort of it was learned and it was transferred to the DNA in that sense that people would know it like okay this is how in architecture you would know that okay if a certain arch needs to be made it could be made by doing this calculation. It was the mind which was doing all the calculations. So the challenge of course is that tradition is lost and we want to conserve it or bring it back or revive it however we want to use it. But how about this creating a fertile mind with this?
Actually, so the first line that you mentioned, these tools are not actually what they are taking away from, like what you don't have to do anymore is have the hand skills to draw your imagination. That is the only tool that's being taken away. Rest, so imagination of what you want, it will not, you just sit in front of it, it will do nothing. You have to write to it to ask. So you have to imagine first what you want. But it will not start from, say, it's a personal story. I'm terrible at sketching human beings. So I would never bring in a human character in my work because I can't sketch a human being. That does not mean I did not want a human being in my drawing. I wanted them, but I could not sketch them. That's a limitation. Literally every designer worth whatever has a set of, you know, biases or limitations. A tool like this is without those limitations. So you could think of whatever, and for me this was like trying to rethink out my limitations and then see what would I like to design. If I could just freely think of a world with whatever things I say and this guy is going to respond to me and show me, after it shows me some options, I know where I want to go. So the mind is actually fully active, but the skill sets required or used are changed. And this actually, from where I am seeing it, makes it a lot more inclusive. Many more people who might have disabilities towards drawing, towards technical skills, like, you know, like brick example you mentioned. I know as architects we've all drawn those bricks and you know,
multiple times.
what it does to the mind of the person who's drawing those bricks. And if I know so many people would not design a building with bricks only, even if they wanted it, because they don't want to draw those bricks on it. So it changes how we want to use and what we want to create. I think it frees up from a lot of limitations. The mason has no limitation is making a brick wall. For him it's easier than making a plastered wall. But the architect has a problem with drawing a brick wall. So he stops putting brick wall, he puts plaster on everything. It is actually empowering, but one needs to approach it in the right way. I think we are at that flux right now where we don't know how to approach it.
I mean, a simple software like Word, you know, because whatever you type, it corrects the spellings. So a lot of people who are bad with spellings or dyslexic, that is very useful. I mean, you may say that people will forget to write, but I use the dictation tool so often because sometimes when you write, you're writing slowly, but you're thinking faster. So if you think and you're at the same time, you're just talking, this is what we have to do, this is how it should, it'll keep typing on its own. So I look at it something like, I mean, this is very simplified, but this is what I look at it, that it's going to be a tool.
Literally, every second counts, and moment you have that relationship, I mean, this is what I'm noticing with so many people. The moment you build that relationship with technology where you are talking and it's listening, and you believe that it's listening and it's going to give you something reliable out to you, you start believing, there's a trust built between the two tools.
And then you can render it later. You can, I mean, I've written a full policy paper like that. Every evening, half an hour, sitting in front of that, ye hona chahiye, aise karna hai, aise. Nahi, fir. So then, of course, talking and writing is different. Then you can correct it and, put it. So I think these are very important tools that are helping, at least people like us. I think everybody, they're helping everybody out if used in a proper way.
I mean, I see a lot of architects these days taking a box and then classic whatever design, and it gives them, and then they give it to the draftsman, they'll draft it out and send it. So I mean, there it has sort of come to that level also, though I feel that of course used in a proper way.
There are all kinds of people always, so yeah.
So as a tool, of course, it is incredible. It's, how intelligence part, if it starts doing, then where would it land?
The easy part is the simulation part, but I think the level where most of the tech is not actually focusing is the power it can bring to the actual producers. That power is a genuine power. For a lot of us, it's just cutting the slack for us and making it little bit easier, but for them it could give them a power of another level that never existed or was taken away from them in the industrial age. So this could create that leveling, of understanding, provided we are able to create tools for them that can do this for them.
I would like to ask a question to the student community who's here. What do you want from tech? If you are a designer, what do you want from tech?
Somebody come up, otherwise we'll start from left to right.
Yeah.
We know you want your lives to be made easy, but what do you want?
Yeah, do you think this is going to make your life easy?
Please take the mic, it'll be better, everybody can hear you around.
Hi, I'm Shreya, I'm from Pearl Academy. After the discussion, I mean, we discussed the pros and cons as mentioned by you, but if approached the right way, I feel this would actually fuel into the creativity more, rather than, of course, the types of people. So I mean, it would help us more in a creative way, I mean, there are, limitations at point. So I feel like a technology like this would actually help. So yeah. You want to add something?
I think it might be a bit stupid to ask this, but with technology changing so much, you can do anything within seconds, right? So can anyone be a designer then? Does it?
Yeah, even the artisan. Anybody can be a designer. It's leveled, the field. But you need to know what you want, otherwise you would get garbage in, garbage out.
I think even today anybody can be a designer. A lot of people who don't go to design schools are also designers. It depends on how you train your mind, like he said, language, understand, and process it. Right. So yeah, every human being is a designer, I think. But then to be a designer of a particular thing, you have to have that kind of knowledge and to take it forward. So yeah, with this, even more people can be
like designers. A unique sense of style can differentiate you.
But the thing that's emerging very clearly is anybody who actually physically makes things with hand is a lot more precious. Yeah. If you are creating things which are dexterous, which are textured, which are not digital images, there is a lot more value to it.
I mean, in the start, I think we should should be traditional, and when we are, when we are in the industry, then we should, I think, use these tools, because without the understanding, the touch and feel, I don't think so we can create something unique.
Touch and feel should never go out of it. That I've been saying that it cannot go out of it.
We're not saying that these two are
separate.
either or. We are saying that this is something which is going to aid you,
Right.
and probably, like Rajeev said, like for instance, as Toolika was saying, this is somebody. So many of our students can't draw.
Right.
So if you had a tool which could help with that, so many of us would not paint, right? But we do definitely want to use that in design.
Right.
And the designers are not skilled people. So this is a different, let's say, a completely different, a completely different topic that you will have to, if you scale that, it will aid you in design.
It's a different workflow. We have a normal, like everybody has their process of creative, so it's another process of creative creation.
And just to understand that, at IICD we've now added it in the 7th semester, AI in crafts, in our recent syllabus which has just been approved. Because I think you can't wish it away. It has to be there. People have to understand. Even if you don't want to use it, you have to understand it. It's very important. Yeah.
Like as ma'am mentioned, ki, if someone don't know how to like paint good or like not to sketch, like personally, if there will be no AI, I would want to learn how to paint, how to sketch. But now I know that by like typing a few words or like maybe typing that I want like a Dabu print skirt, I can get multiple designs rather than actually looking and talking with the actual Dabu person. Like that's just like a drawback I feel, that if we are training AI into the crafts and stuff like that, तो मशीन तो ऑलरेडी बना ही रही है. अगर मशीन को ये भी पता चलता जा रहा है कि दाबू प्रिंटिंग में है क्या, तो वो भी कॉपी होता जाएगा.
वो तो वैसे भी हो रहा है.
नहीं, वो हो रहा है, लेकिन देयर आर सर्टेन डिजाइन्स जो हम लोगों ने अभी जब क्राफ्ट्समैन से बात करी, देयर वाज समथिंग that was just unique about that design. That was not something which we saw in like a machine print or like जैसे लहरिया for that matter. लहरिया is something जो machine बहुत easily copy कर चुकी है. We have screen printed लहरिया. But when I met with the craftsman, he had certain pieces जो उनके patent pieces हैं, जो उन्होंने खुद explore कर करके बनाए by hands. That is not something that I think AI समझेगा, क्योंकि और not even मैं समझूंगा, क्योंकि मैं ऐसे था कि we can get that AI से 2-3 बार prompts डाल के maybe 1 घंटा, 2 घंटा, 3 घंटा, 1 दिन. But he took actually 6 months of it. So don't you think that will like make people more like वो भूलते जाएंगे कि actually craft के अंदर बहुत मेहनत लगती है, and like the design part जो crafts ने इतना सोच के
मैं समझ रही हूँ, बिल्कुल समझ रही हूँ आपकी बात, और ये बहुत एक जायज़ क्वेश्चन है. if I may answer this question, बिकॉज ये सबसे पहले हमारे ख्याल में आएगा ही ये, क्योंकि हम भी कंडीशनड है एक तरीके से, हम सब कंडीशनड है उस तरीके से, और हम चाहते हैं कि आर्टिजन का राइट प्रोटेक्टेड रहे, है ना. डिज़ाइनर्स के साथ भी होता है, डिज़ाइनर्स जो आर्टिजन्स के साथ काम करते हैं वो भी चाहते हैं कि आर्टिजन्स का राइट प्रोटेक्टेड रहे. लेकिन इसमें आर्टिजन्स का राइट जा नहीं रहा. 2 बात आप कर रहे हैं, एक तो कि उसका डिज़ाइन चला जाएगा, दूसरा कि आप लेथार्जिक हो जाएंगे, है ना. तो आप लेथार्जिक हो जाएंगे, वो टोटली आपके ऊपर डिपेंड करता है. अगर आप चाहते हैं कि इन स्पाइट ऑफ नोइंग ऑल ऑफ दिस देयर आर पीपल हु आर सिटिंग एंड पेंटिंग ऑन देयर ओन, यस, तो वो अभी भी करेंगे, वो तब भी करेंगे. और हम जनरलाइज नहीं कर सकते, क्योंकि जिसको पसंद है वो करेगा, जिसको नहीं. और ये तो अभी हम क्राफ्ट की बात कर रहे हैं, ऐसा म्यूजिक में कितना हो गया है, हर इंडस्ट्री में ये हो रहा है. तो बिना म्यूजिशियंस के म्यूजिक बज रहा है, लोग गाना गा रहे हैं, हो ही रहा है ना. तो ऑल ऑफ दिस इज गोइंग टू हैपन. But to create the original things and to give you a library of things, somebody is working there. That person will still be there. Like sir said ना, कि जो हाथ से काम कर रहा है उसकी वैल्यू है, और डिजाइनर जो है उसको वो उसके अराउंड काम कर रहा है, उसके पास ऑप्शंस हैं कि मैं ये सब कर सकता हूँ. और जो बात है कि देखना, वो तो एजुकेशन के टाइम पे आपका चलेगा ही, और ज़िंदगी भर एजुकेशन चलती है. ऐसा नहीं 4 साल में डिग्री मिल जाती है, एजुकेशन ज़िंदगी भर चलती है. You'll have to study lifelong to be able to understand. है ना? So it's not going to hamper anything, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, so what my point specific was, जैसे if we the basic thing, like अगर मेरे को cold cough है, I search on Google, the first thing they say is like कोई बहुत ही like अजीबोगरीब बीमारी है या फिर वो, but to get the correct thing कि मेरे को actually में दिक्कत क्या है, I'll go and visit the specific doctor, and not like if I have pain in my tooth, so I'll just directly go and visit dentist specifically. But my point is, अगर if we are feeding the same information online, and every people have the access to it, so don't you think that will be like more of a leverage kind of a thing when वैसे ही Google ने सब कुछ like इधर उधर कर दिया, we have everything out there and we have every information, कि लोगों को ये नहीं पता कि कौन से डिजाइनर के पास क्या जाना चाहिए, because they think ये भी हो जाएगा, मीशो ये भी ला देगा, 70 रुपए की चीज में सेम चीज आ जाएगी. बट इसके अंदर डिजाइनर्स का जो रोल है वो तो हटता ही जाएगा, क्योंकि जो बेसिक लोग हैं आजकल वो भी नेट पे 2-3 चीजें सर्च करके दे ब्रिंग आउट विद अ डिजाइन, दे कोलैबोरेट इट, दे गो टू डायरेक्टली द टेलर और एनीवन एंड दे डायरेक्टली मेक इट. तो डिजाइनिंग फील्ड ही बेसिकली कटती ही जाएगी. वैसे ही इट्स ऑन द लीप बिकॉज ऑफ द एआई इंटरवेंशन. सो 4 साल की डिग्री भी मतलब हाउ विल इट हेल्प?
let me You have a very good point, but I think there is a small nuance in the. No, leave the mic. I think he has more to say. By giving extra information, knowledge does not become available to you just by having this, right? You think when Google is telling you about cough and cold, you have imagined how much information it has to its disposal? Can't imagine how many terabytes of data of all the research paper in the world it has got access to it, and still what it gives you don't like it. So why is it that you don't like it and you still go to the doctor? That's your internal wiring, your programming, right? That makes you not trust that level of information and still go and visit your doctor. That's the wiring we are talking about. That's not going to go away ever. Your wiring is intact. And if you actually on top of it, if you work with your hand more, you would actually understand the nuances of what you can do better, and then you would be able to use that tool way better than somebody who does not know how to do things by hand. So doing by hand is the most original way human beings can learn. The more we do it, the better and saner we are. The less we do creative works on our own, we get into the mechanized mode. So that stuff is more human than anything to do with machine. And for the longest time, machine will be asking you, and at some point it will stop asking you, but that will be a service at a much cheaper price. It's like your Uber or your so that service is available on call to everyone. Nothing specific, you're not checking the driver, you're not checking the service, you're just calling for it. It's almost commoditized. But I don't think designers can exist in the commodity space. You were never in commodity space.
Yeah. There's a girl who wants to ask a question there.
Hi. So I'm Joy from RISD. I didn't understand a lot of that, but I did agree with some of the. I do feel that the whole how you began with the culture code is very interesting, because that seems to be something that needs to come from the craftsman, that needs to come from the craft themselves. And if that is in place, and if that language is spoken, then this tsunami of AI will not lead to the obsolescence of the craft, as I think Harshad was mentioning. But I am interested that the conversation started off being about establishing a culture code that comes from the craft, but it has started to become more of a question of designers. In your opinion, is this culture code something that is going to be facilitated by designers? Is it going to be a top-down?
Yeah, while putting this whole thing together, this is a question that keeps coming in. I was actually trying to keep it out, but it is not out. So any conversation lately, at least in this part, but I think it's globally, that there is a big fear about what it'll do to livelihoods and who's going to be impacted. I personally feel it's just a new tool, but we are not, from the culture point of view, from our cultural context that we live in, we are not active players in that conversation only. We are right now just the consumers of a conversation that somebody else is having. And because of that, how it is impacting us that's projected as a long-term problem that's emerging. And fortunately, we are at an early stage where we can probably do more about this conversation. But I don't see any impact on designers per se, but it's a different workflow for all of us, not just designers actually. It's a different workflow from everybody, and it's happened so fast that we have to also learn equally fast how we are going to do what we are going to do. But our conversations moving into design community is because we are all designers here. So the other part of it, we'll have this conversation with artisans.
I think it's just the beginning. When we start doing these conversations, things will happen. Whenever there's change, there's always resistance to begin with. I mean, a thing as small as women education, when it started, there was a lot of resistance, and today, we know the results. So I think anything that's new will always have resistance. But if there are a lot of like-minded people who come together and do the conversation and take it in a very positive manner, I think it'll move forward.
I really believe that as designers, we are emotionally connected to the work we put on, and that cannot be inputted, that cannot be in, like किसी भी तरह से उसकी coding नहीं की जा सकती AI में. We are taught, as in जब हम college attend करते हैं, by our faculties, everyone, that whatever you feel, you should put it out as a designer. You should put out those designs, you should put out your ideologies, whatever you feel. And there must be someone out there connecting to it. That's how designers sell their products. They're not following the trends. We are actually having that class right now. So I really believe कि आप emotions नहीं feed in कर सकते हो AI में. AI कितना ही develop हो जाए, it can never feel. We as human beings can. And that's what differentiates us as designers from designer AI. So I just wanted to put that.
So what do you mean by emotions feel? Matlab, when you're typing your most emotional script on Microsoft Word, is it feeling anything?
No.
So is this?
Whenever AI is being developed, or for that instance, any technology is being developed, it is being developed to answer your questions, not feel your emotions.
No. If your emotions are encapsulated in your words, then it is transmitted. If you are not transmitting what you are feeling, nobody in the world is going to understand it. It will be just you. So even if whatever you are designing, you are not figured out a way to translate your emotional feeling into that garment or whatever you're designing, that feeling will not go out.
If I am putting something in my garment, or if I'm putting something out, I am connecting to what I'm putting out. So
इमोशनल कनेक्शन सारे डिज़ाइनर्स का उनके डिज़ाइंस के साथ होता ही है. Artificial intelligence robots per se are always कहना चाहिए एक वे में उनके अंदर इनपुट किया जाता है कि ओके दिस क्वेश्चन दिस आंसर लॉजिक दे वर्क ऑन.
No, that's not how LLMs work. So that's the earlier version where software was coded and the answer was predictable choice of answers that were available. That's not how LLMs work. That's the whole revolution about. It's changed the way of working. So you have to change your way of thinking of how this LLM specifically, it's not software. The LLMs are working on a very different way. It's a neural network, closer to our thinking processes. Of course, it doesn't feel emotions. It'll only feel what you express in your words right now or your images. But you have to share your feeling. It'll respond to that feeling in a mechanical way. But the way the data, like you give an answer right now, you're speaking, so you have a data set in your head from which you are putting these words out. The data set they have is an enormously larger set of data than you have individually about a subject articulated in words. It can articulate very differently. It's just a tool to use, but you have to speak your mind. Without that, it's not going to create anything useful for you. So unless only thing you need to figure out is how to express your emotions to your private LLM, not to the world. Just it's a conversation, like she was saying, the conversation with her speaker phone. It's that conversation, you and your speaker phone talking to each other.
Should we take last two questions?
So I don't know how to put this, but the thing is that when we talk about the technological advancement for the craft person and for the designer, so we talk a lot about the craft person, designers. So my question is that, for an example, like these days the CNC machine is coming inbuilt with the AI technique. So what do you think that coming with this AI technique in a machinery or something, will not impact the overproduction in the industry and or the profitability or economic sectors for the craft person?
I think CNC have been around for a while. And
No, CNC is for a while, but now the CNC machine has been incorporated with the AI techniques also.
So it is more intelligent than before. And what they can do is what they can do, and in the time that they can do, and what people, so it's actually, if I look at from a designer's point of view, like somebody who's creating with these, if you know you're working with a CNC, you will design differently. If you're working with an artisan, you will design very differently, very, very differently. And that nuance you would know immediately. When you're working with the machine, you will see what it does to you and how it responds. You might be, from your designer point of view, love that, because he's not asking any question, he's doing exactly what I tell him. That is one way of looking at it. If you wanted the artisan's mind to also be a collaborative player with you, where you say half the words, they understand half the words, they apply their 50, 60, whatever years of experience and put that into it by enhancing what you had in mind. But you'd never asked for that. You didn't give an exact 3D file, which is what you had to give to a CNC machine. So it is evolving and creating something for you way more precious. But if you're not that person who likes somebody meddling with your design and changing it, then CNC is there, a better tool for you. But see, these tools keep coming, right? CNC was not there before, CNC is there. It might impact certain kind of artisan works, but certain kinds will still flourish.
And today they are working together, So like, for example, I've seen so many stone and wood things where CNC is being used to cut larger blocks and then the artisan is working on it. So I think a lot of people are working in collaboration also. But yeah,
like the technology advancement has been going up, and a lot of AI has been inbuilt with those technological advancement also.
I mean, it would be possible if AI engine can generate your design. They can also deliver the end product end to end without any human intervention in between, very close to call anytime now. But how does that change? If you wanted an artisan to be part of your creative process, which is, the artisan is a thinking person, not a machine. So if you want that thinking mind, work with you, work at also that pace where after print button is pressed, nothing can be done. You can keep visiting him every day and change it. If that is your workflow, this person would be the ideal person to work for you. But if you were using the Artisan as a machine, take this, make 500 pieces of this, I think he's been saved from that problem now. They don't have to do this kind of mechanical repetition. Going down the line, this will become less and less.
Hi, my name is Thue. Given the context, and we've been talking so much with design in mind, with like the specific subject matter, I had as this was an open dialogue, a thought of like another field. If we imagined how these changes impacted that, like if we think about music, folk music is a category that always existed, but if you take the last 30 years, how many people Spotify or phone right now has like hip hop or music that involves samples from other music, and 30-40 years worth of people who still know that, oh, when you're talking to musicians, there are people who will still go to like the most remote areas to find an instrument that is still like unreplicatable in a sampling technique in all these ways. And because like music is a separate category everyone can enjoy, people who like folk music continue to find that, and it's still being generated. People who like sampling as a technique that exists, there's a completely different, like producers are a category of musician that exists now that didn't exist 30-40 years ago. And both those worlds keep intersecting back and forth because everyone kind of just had to embrace the fact that this exists. And there are ways to use it well, and there's ways to use it badly, because music is a thing you also like innately can tell, oh, I like this, I don't like this, but the people who are responsible, the musicians know, oh, to increase my own bandwidth, I need to go find musicians, I need to go find instruments that are compelling, and that goes from like auto-tune becoming a gimmick to it is a tool that you can use to improve some things, and then that also affects taste. So as this conversation moved about specifically the role of designers, it's like there are other fields of art, of creativity, who have gone through these transitions that we can also learn from, see like where the pitfalls are, where like the advantages lie, because as the role of designers also moves, it's like this kind of thinking impacts that many more professions, that many more kinds of creative. So as things were going, I just wanted to throw that in there also, because that was pulled out in the process of this talk.
No, I think very true. Things like Kamaicha, Ravan Hatta, people have to go and bring it, and even if AI can sort of replace, it will not be able to do till a musician is involved in it. Yeah.
I think this flux of technology is a flux of technology. All generations have been talking about it. So, but I think the design and craft community has not developed the right workflows for this emerging technology. We are normally not at the cutting edge of technology. Architecture is the furthest behind, but then these disciplines are also at a little lag side of, so these workflows will emerge, I'm sure, over these years now for all of us.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think we are working towards that, but it's a very small step. It's a dent, I must say, not even a small step. But I'm sure with people like you around and others who are interested, we can take it forward.